Gorgeous here this morning. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Okay, YouTube's firing up.
All right. You gonna let people in here too?
Yep. Say hi.
Howdy.
Hey, everybody on YouTube. Got people coming in on Zoom.
Are there.
Nice. Oh, howdy.
Here comes everybody.
Wham.
Wow.
That was like,
Boom.
like floodgates.
There's Dave Ply. I haven't seen you for a while, man. I don't know if you can hear me. Probably not. A bunch of friends.
Yeah, I see a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah, lots of fun faces. Hey, Woody, let's make sure we've got it where, yeah, I think you know what I'm saying. Hey, everybody. I decided to change up my view a little bit today. Bunch of familiar faces. People still coming in. A lot of people still connecting to audio. Couple familiar Daves there.
Couple of Carls.
Couple of Carls. There's Bill. The beard is still intact.
Looks like we have a first timer, Joseph. What's up, Joseph?
Hello.
We want to, hey, Woody.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. There's a drop down for you that enables or disables. Yeah.
Already done.
Sorry,
okay,
guys.
Take it away, Hudson.
All right, yeah. I'm going to reclaim the host here. Set up a couple quick settings.
We got Nashville and Chicago on YouTube so far.
Wow. Are we still being boycotted by Indiana? Oh, no, I saw Ken. I saw Ken there. So.
Yeah, that whole Indiana discussion was pretty funny last
Cleveland,
time.
Boston, UK, Ottawa. What's up, everyone?
Nice to see everybody. All right. Well, so
Hudson, you're on grid. Hudson, you're on grid view. Go ahead and switch it back to host view.
You want me to switch mine back to host view?
Yeah, because you're sending a grid to YouTube.
Oh, I gotcha. Well, it's good to see everybody. I decided to switch my view up a little bit, so you'll probably be looking at the side of me a little bit, back and forth. We'll do some Q&A today, and we're going to go through and just kind of take a look at all the fall photos that everybody submitted. For those of you, I know there's a few first-timers here on the Zoom meeting. We mute the participants just because if 50 people try to talk at once, it gets insane. Rick and I just finished a week of doing a really fun project group where we had 10 people working with us on panoramas. We had 2 groups of 10 kind of running a virtual workshop, and that was awesome and fun. But even with 10, it gets a little tough to all talk at the same time. So Woody, do you have any input you want to put out there about just kind of general rules and practices?
So we simulcast at YouTube. So there's YouTube and Zoom. If you ever want to participate in the Zoom, just register in advance at hudsonhenry.com/office hours. You can submit a question. We have a long list of questions that we keep. We try to get to as many as possible. This week, we're talking about fall images that people submitted. And so we have a gallery set up, and we'll post a link to that both in YouTube and the chat here if you don't have it. But you can also go to hudsonhenry.com/office hours, and there's a link on that page. It'll be posted to YouTube afterwards. So if you need to bail or skip a portion, you can always watch it later. And we also post it on Hudson's blog and various other places. So feel free to type away, ask questions. We'll get to as many as possible. Thanks for showing up.
And I want to thank Rick out in LeGrand for joining us, as always, and Darren for being here and monitoring YouTube, and David in South Carolina, the whole crew here kind of helping out. It's always great. So I don't know. Maybe we should just jump in. I'll share my screen and we can start looking at some photos that people submitted. We got quite a few, so we'll run through that and then we'll do a little Q&A and sort of see where the discussion takes us. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and that jumps us right in here to our fall image submissions gallery. Lot of great submissions, and we'll just start out with Bill's awesome panorama of Diamond Head and the full moon. Beautiful image.
Beautiful shot.
Yeah. You know, Bill, I might like crop it just inside of this one building on the corner and give it a little, because it's got some space on the right. It might give it just a little balance there. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. It's a nice shot, though.
Really nice. Fun use of the panorama.
Mm-hmm.
We've been looking at a lot of panoramas lately. This lake house just by Jim is looks like a nice place to be. I love the reflections. Whenever you got water that's still, you know, if you're and you got good light like this, if you're not seeing reflections, walk around to the other side.
Yeah, this is another lovely shot. Jim said he took it in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it's just one of those sections of the country that just has these beautiful little lakes sort of scattered all over the place. And then
it's beautiful.
Fun little cabins.
This one is by Joseph, and it's just a lovely scene. I really like the composition with the diagonal lines cutting in and sort of pulling you in. I like the fact that you showcase the bridge and have the falls kind of half hidden. It's funny because I look at it and I feel like, these slanting blocks geologically make me feel like the horizon's off, but then I look up at the bridge and it's straight.
Yeah.
I wonder maybe just like, if there's not something horrifically distracting on both sides, maybe just a little wider and a little more of that blue sky, and having that bridge drop into the scene to kind of anchor you that this is actually level might just be a little, but it's a great shot. I'm nitpicking there.
Yeah, I think it's mostly a trick of the eye, because you've got all of these lines going in different directions. But I'd like to see a little more sky too. But I love the clouds sort of underneath the arch of the bridge. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
Where is
nice.
this?
Oh, where was that?
Letchworth State Park in New York, which
beautiful.
is, I think I've been there actually. Yeah.
This one by Camille is just, I love the juxtaposition of the guy and the tree. I think that the one thing I would say is, in a scene like this, I'd be inclined to, if I had a wider lens, I'd go a little closer, go a little wider, and I wouldn't necessarily use this framing of these green leaves. I'd have that kind of dramatic cloudy sky, and it would minimize some of the distractions in the background to be even wider angle too. They'd look smaller and a smaller part of the scene, but just make it all about that tree in the park bench. But it's beautiful. And I love how this tree just anchors the scene, and it is all about that color. It's a really nice shot. Says a lot. Moving in, Medrick. This is, it's always tough to shoot streams and forests in blue sky days, unless it's that like late light or the very, very first light that's soft and even flowing through. You did a good job with the exposure here. I think, I'm always going to look to shoot a scene like this on an overcast day, though. It's just going to help with the shadows and the highlights in the scene. But nice fall color. Rick, did you want to talk to Rob's double sunstar here? Oh, you're muted. Somehow you got muted and you can't.
A second, I can get him. I got him.
Can you get him?
1 second.
How did you mute yourself? Well, hang on. Do I need to do it?
Andy disappeared from the list here. Just a second.
Hold on. Okay, I'm back. I'm back.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No more muting.
This is an interesting shot. The Sunstar it's a little bright to me. but it works. The one down below is kind of bothersome to me because it's like a sort of double sun star. I almost would have preferred just a little bit to the left to try and get maybe even that reflection sun star into the tree.
Into the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. Charlie was working on a double sun star reflecting in a pool on Kauai in the last workshop we were able to run before the whole COVID thing. And it's just a tough thing to pull off. It's interesting and it happens in reflections, but it's tough to not just kind of throw the eye. It throws the eye. And then the other thing is when you got this bright a sun star midday, you wind up, you're almost always going to have ghosts floating around in your scene. So it's a cool concept and you pulled it off there. It's just, I think it's tough to compositionally work with double sun stars. This is just, all about the color, Stan. Gorgeous, gorgeous color. I think, there's a couple things, just a couple little critiques. It's a beautiful shot. You've got these puffy white clouds. I'd love to have a little bit more sky. And I think that if this tree wasn't so quite dead center, if you could find a composition where you move a little bit and shift it off to the right or to the left, I think it would benefit the composition. But lovely shot. This one, Harris, we had an interesting question. Harris asked, it's a great shot of the moon rising behind the dome. Or setting, I don't know which it was, I can't remember. But the question was, how could I get this exposure so that I have more detail in the foreground shadows? And the only real way to do that is to figure out the timing. You can use either Sun Surveyor or Photo Pills or the photographer's ephemeris before you ever go out. And you find that time when that full moon is going to be coming down at an angle behind the building while there's still a little bit of daylight left. Because if you get into the black of night, the moon is lit directly by the sun. The moon is in the same day-lit state that the world is in the middle of the day. And so there's just no possible way to really balance that exposure and have shadow details without some kind of an extreme HDR that's really not going to look natural. That's why I'm always looking for that moon set that's happening on the very, very last part of the day, the moonrise that's happening at just moments before sunset, where you have the last little bit of light lighting your landscape. Anytime it even gets into blue hour and you've got a moon in it, then everything's going to be pretty much silhouette. So yeah, I think you did a great job actually capturing all the tones in this scene, because it still is tough when you got pure daylight and just some incandescent city lights on the dome. It was a nice shot. Bill, this is a spot we know, isn't it, Rick?
Yes.
We really should be there or have been there the last couple of weeks running some workshops. But the Tetons is one of my favorite places I've ever photographed.
So this is interesting because this is a drone shot. And in the pano project we just did, I showed a bunch of sort of panos that I built out of drone shot, with my Mavic Pro. I don't know if this is actually a built panorama with multiple slices, and that might help a bit. Bill was talking that the long edge of 2000 pixels really sort of drops off some of the sharpness.
Right.
And what I've done in these such situations is I turn the camera so that it's in a vertical orientation, and you just turn it, just ever so slightly, and snap, 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 and you get a much bigger, better image to work with.
Right.
This one feels a little, the horizon isn't quite level, and I think if it were corrected, that might help with some of the foreground elements that are a little. I love the trees on the right, that little group of trees, and I would do everything I could to sort of keep that.
Agreed.
But
leveling it, you might help with this little distraction in the bottom left corner a bit too.
Yeah. But beautiful shot of a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. I like this one, Carl. Just that road just pulls me in. You know, I'm often talking about try to get that foundational elementing you're seeing off to the left, off to the right into a rule of thirds point. But some scenes, like a tree-lined road, it's great to have it go straight up the middle. It just pulls you in like a tunneling effect. And this one does that. And I really like the way this tree and this tree kind of anchor the scene, these two trees. You know, I might crop it just a little bit more panoramic to reduce a little of that white sky up there, but it's really nice as is. Love it. Another beautiful lake house shot, Chris. I really love this one.
Me too.
You know,
it's just the atmosphere in this is just wonderful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Just a great shot, Chris.
Really nice.
Like the color of the roof.
Yeah.
Matching
fits, doesn't it? Dan, this one, you know, it's an interesting, that kind of early winter into fall, a little bit of stuff left, you know, a little bit of color. I was in Zion one time right at this point in the season, and it was just beautiful. But you know, the one thing I would argue that you should just, if you just back the green saturation off a little bit. I feel distracted by how green the mosses in the stream are, and they may be that green. It just feels like it pulls me right into that color. And then crop for that fence post on the left. But
yeah,
beautiful transitional moment.
He said it was very cold.
I'll bet. David, wow, what a scene. I love the gold in the foreground. You know, I might warm this up just a little bit. The shadows look a bit blue up on the snow. And again, you know, if you could get back to here later in the day as that light gets a little softer, but beautiful. Nice shot. This is David Price. Yeah, a great moment in fall. You know, you gotta, anytime you're getting so up close, you gotta make sure that you've got all your close foreground bit sharp too. It's definitely sharper towards the back than towards the front. It's just it's a tricky game, but I like the blue sky with the orange. Those complementary colors are so nice.
Yeah, I might crop in a little bit more on that one just to really let the frame be filled by the leaves and the branch.
Sure. This is just a lovely scene by Dennis. Oh, really, really nice. I want to go to there. You know, I might, if I'm shooting it, I would step a little bit forward. There's clearly something kind of close blowing around in the foreground. And this is a pano, right? Am I remembering that correct?
Yeah, it's a pano. Yep.
I'd move forward a bit. There's some distracting thing right in here.
Well, and some of it looks like some of this is a merge issue, because they're just in the grasses up in the lower right hand corner look kind of cloned, and I get that it's a hint, but it's enough of a hint that my eye stops there.
The overarching point I'd make is, you know, I mean, if you've got close things in your foreground, that's when your panorama suddenly becomes complex. You know, that's our whole hit. If you've watched my advanced panorama training course, the video course, or if you were in the project that we ran last week, I mean, the thing that makes a panorama complex is when you have some detail that needs to be sharpened and focused in the foreground. Then all of a sudden you have a hard time merging these pieces.
Yeah.
And so you solve that in a scene like this with such gorgeous reflections and still water by just stepping forward and making the reflections and still water into your foreground. I don't think that these grasses are very foundational. They're a little too low in the frame to be a good kind of anchoring foreground element anyway. So I would be inclined to just step forward and get rid of them. Just make it, you know, step forward, bring the camera low, make that big, beautiful mirror of the water your foreground. But it's a lovely scene. And, you know, you could do some things. You could do some things to get rid of this carefully in post. It's just going to take some work, some cloning. And oh, Jackie actually emailed this to me, looking to get it into the gallery, and I said, "Oh, make sure you get it into the gallery." It's just a lovely, lovely shot of that elk braying. It sure looks cold.
Yeah, yes, it does.
Great moment. Way to get that right moment. And this, James, just such a nice feel for fall right here.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
bummer
this is
that
such a wonderful.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's a wonderful, wonderful shot. You know, I might back up a little on the saturation, at least in the yellows, but it captured just at the right time. As you were about to say, the cat kind of gets a little bit lost on the path, but the anchor is the woman walking, and there's that's what you want to capture more than anything else. But a lovely shot.
Really nice. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing you can do about the fact that the cat is the same color as the leaves.
Yeah.
And Jay, this is just a really, I love the way that the river comes through here and bends through, and you left this corner, this triangle of color. You know, my one kind of note that I give to you on this is that in the post-processing, I would just back off on that red saturation a little bit. It goes to a bit of a surreal place. Not a lot, just a little. Just take that red saturation slider and just try sliding it back 5 or 6 points, and I think you'll find it blends in just a little bit better. Beautiful though. What a beautiful spot. I love the way that the rocks come jutting up. The bedrock is tilted and coming up at that angle into this stream. It's amazing. Joe, this is such a nice scene of this mill. You know, you've got this longer shutter speed on the water. I wonder, you know, if you put some neutral density on and went even slower to blur this stuff moving through.
Yeah, let's see. He did 1 second.
1 second, yeah. You know, try 15 seconds and see what that looks like. Whenever I get a scene like this and there's this kind of fluff flowing through, it's interesting what patterns it might create, or leaves floating through. You know, this is one of those scenes where if you live near here and there's a foggy day, I'd love to see this in the mist.
Yeah. This one was taken in Woodland, Washington.
Oh, really? It's not so far from me. Go check this out.
Cedar Creek Grist Mill.
Huh.
I'd love to see like an even closer shot, you know, of that mill. That building is just beautiful.
It really is. I have to go check this out. We might have to make a little trip in the winter mists, Rick.
Yeah.
Ken, this one, I would just back the saturation off on the greens for sure on this one a little bit. Mm-hmm. I love the leaf litter, the abstract of it, the kind of decay. The funny thing is, it's that kind of great shot of leaves decaying, but then the green saturation. I think the whole thing could use a little pull of the tint slider from green towards magenta too. I think it's just got a little bit of a green cast to it. That might be pulling too.
It's a great abstract though.
It is a great abstract. Like the pattern of it is wonderful. I would make sure your monitor is calibrated right, because that could be another thing. It could be that the monitor is just a little off in its color calibration, and so it looks different to you. But I would pull that slider from green towards magenta in the white balance, that lower tint slider, and then back the green off just a little bit. I think it might help just kind of pull you in. Ken, you went and did the trip even though we didn't have the workshop, and bravo for that. And this is a lovely long lens moose and fall color shot. This is that kind of thing that you get in the Tetons. And you know, I guess the only thing I'd say is it looks like you really pulled the shadows here, and you get that kind of look where there's not quite enough tonality and you're pulling the shadows past where they want to be. I'd just leave them just a little darker in there. You know, you don't need to have quite as much shadow detail. I think you can back off a little bit and it just look a touch more natural. But it's beautiful, and they're sharp, and it's a great composition and nice use with the long lens.
He said it was 23 degrees when he took that shot.
Yeah, I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it. Lee, nice close-up work with the weight here. I might back the vignette off just a little bit, but the color's fun, and nice job.
Yep, it's a fun shot.
It is. And this one, Leslie, this is some some really fun, abstract kind of simplification. I looked at this and I just immediately thought what a great puzzle that would make. You know, I've been doing a lot of puzzles with my kids, and this would be the perfect print to send off for a puzzle. I really like how the grass is in the middle of it. You know, a lot of times the success or failure of these kinds of, you know, really wildly creative post-production, it really relies on a great photo as the foundation. And I think this had a great photo for its foundation. It's really nice.
Yeah. Leslie asked if you used these types of plugins at all. I used to when I started out, but I've since it's just not the style that I'm looking to create in my work. But I always marvel when I see someone do something like this and it works. You know? Exactly.
It's funny because I read that question and I thought we'd probably get to it in the Q&A, and then I saw the photo and I realized what the question was really asking is, do you do this kind of thing? And I have played with simplification too, kind of turning your original photo into a little bit more of an abstract. And I would say the same thing as Rick. You know, I've sort of sought out realism in my photography, and I get even more into realism as I advance with it. I'm really looking for recreating that scene how I saw it in my mind at the time. But I do really admire when people do it well. And as far as using plugins, yes, I use plugins all the time. I use plugins both in my video editing and in my photo editing, but not usually the simplification things like this. This is a really nice job of it.
I think it's very
David,
nice.
you've done. Yeah, David, you've done some of this stuff I've seen.
Yeah, I've gone through some phases of that too. This appears to be maybe Topaz type plugins.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
But it's not overdone. You know, sometimes people just crank it up.
No, it's done really well for the composition. And, you know, this is the thing we always talk about is if you're going to apply textures, you're going to play with simplification or any of those types of artistic plugins.
And that would be a
start with a good image. Yeah.
For big splash of color on the wall.
Or like I said, I mean, I really think this would make a fabulous puzzle.
Yes. I think it would make a great puzzle, a hard puzzle.
Norm, this is really interesting, Norman. This is I love the color in this. And again, this is another, you know, going in and doing a bunch of textures and getting super creative with the base photo. I think there's something with the arrangement that could maybe shift a little bit. Like
it feels static to me. Like the three prints all sort of pointing in the same direction. I think I might have, you know, might tilt one or two, or, you know, play with the composition a little bit. You know, sort of like the last one. It's a really interesting approach.
It is. And I like the way that, you know, there's a different shading. This one has so much white, this one has so much green, this one has so much red. I feel that this one in the center kind of crowds the other two a little bit. There's got to be a way to give all three their own space a little bit, but it's really well done and it's interesting and it's sparking a conversation. So there you go. Nice job, Norman. This one by Polly. Lovely fall scene. I would work to make sure that this foreground, you know, if you're gonna include the foreground, I would work to make sure that it's not sort of reaching up and touching that reflection of the other edge. Make sure it's kind of just hovering there in the clear reflected sky. And also just that you've got a small enough aperture that you're sharp here and that your focus is set. It looks like you've got infinity relatively sharp, but you need that foreground a bit sharp too. But I love the scene and the way that the pathway sort of flows with people. It's the right moment to show that bridge connecting, and a good overcast day to be shooting in the landscape. This is lovely, Rebecca. Just such great Oregon coast and fall atmospherics. I feel like maybe just a little pan to the right, a little bit more of this tree with the vegetation coming in.
Yeah,
What do you think,
It
Rick?
works for me. It works for me.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm nitpicking.
Yeah, I might use a clone stamp or something down at the bottom to clone out that little bit down there, but it really does sort of help lead you into the frame in a way that if it weren't there, if it were cropped right to the edge, it would still be a lovely atmospheric photo, but there wouldn't be as much of an anchor to sort of let you wander the frame. I love the sort of the movement in the water,
a little bit of wind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be my fall project is mist and stuff like that.
Robert, nice shot of these horses with the fall color behind them. Robert asked a question in submitting the image about how to what was the question, Rick? It was sort of
how to make the horses stand out more without detracting from the leaves in the background.
In the background or the foreground?
In the background.
In the background. Well, I mean, a longer lens. This shot, that's the thing, and not everyone has that long lens with them. But with this shot, leaning through this vegetation, you don't necessarily need this framing for this shot. For me, everything here is these horses in the trees, and you get them in the frame and wait for the right moment where they have the right pose, and you just get them and the color. The framing is right in there. And they'll be bigger in the frame.
Yeah, I mean, the issue that you have, this instinct to frame, create a frame within the frame is a strong one, and it's a good one. The problem is that how do you do it in a way that doesn't just detract from the scene overall? And the branches on the right are less of an issue to me than the ones in the lower left, because they are unfocused. I really, as you said, would just sort of lean forward more and just get that out of the way. And as close as you can get, he shot it with a 24-70 on a Z7, as close as you can get to sort of put those horses, in sort of a bit lower in the frame. I think would really sort of help all of that sort of stand out in a better way.
Indeed.
And Bob said that this is by the side of the road, and he was limited on where he could shoot from.
Yeah, and that this is the thing, right? So we're all out practicing. We're finding these shots, and you keep looking for these kinds of shots. And what happens is over time, you get into a place like this, and you go, okay, this isn't working. So where do I need to get to try and make it work a little bit better? And sometimes you can't get it.
And the more, if you become more passionate about these longer scenes with wildlife and things like that, investing in a longer lens to have with you, you find yourself, oh, that's an interesting scene. And in the car, you're switching to your 70-200 or, one thing for the Z camera is that 24-200. I tried Charlie's down in Port Orford. It's a pretty darn nice lens. It's surprisingly good. It's not much bigger than the 24-70. That would be great in this situation too.
Can I say one last thing for Bob? The one thing that I don't know how much of this is cropped versus, not. If you haven't cropped it, you shot it with a Z7, you can get it. You could sort of get in and crop around that. Yeah, around the frame. Get rid of some of that other stuff and maybe a little bit of cloning, and you'd have a lovely shot.
Yeah, and you'd have just as many megapixels as you would have with a D700. A few short years ago. So.
Yeah, he says it's not heavily cropped. So you could still play with it. You might have to deal with a little bit of tree branches to pull out on the right side if you did a horizontal crop. But you could also do a vertical crop, and that it looks to me like it would be a lovely shot. So
yep, indeed. Here we've got Ted. I love this kind of burnt forest feel here, that the bit of fall color and the lower, the kind of brushy section. I feel though, there's the foreground, I could use less. I could just crop in here, and maybe back off that kind of pink. I don't know. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, it's hard to tell whether, how much of that sort of pinkish magenta is from some of
Natural.
and I mean, it feels like the color's been played with a little bit here. I agree that the foreground, there's a little bit too much foreground in that path, and it's not very interesting. I'd almost try maybe either getting a little bit lower in the frame and shooting up. But the interesting thing to me are the trees in the center, that sort of path that leads up. And
I love
that's where I'd really be focusing on. He said it's in Wichita, Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge, about 10 minutes from the house. And if you're inclined, Ted, there's a really nice shot here.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's this nice shot with a little bit of cropping, but I think, you could go in and really focus on that row of trees to kind of get in there. What Ted says, I think I tried to grab too many roots, and I think, yes, that would be what I would say too.
I'm going to say something really unusual for those who've been out on workshops with me and shot with me a lot. I'm going to say, also think about horizontal. So I'm kind of the default vertical guy. I'm the guy, have you thought about a vertical here? But I think horizontal could be really cool here too. I would definitely shoot it both ways.
I'd definitely be playing with this. There is a great image here.
Yeah. No, this is lovely. Terry was in our piano group this last week and did some really fine work. This is just beautiful fall color right here. Love it. Love the layers of it. The yellow,
Where's
the
that one
green,
at?
the red, the white. Well, Terry's up in the Seattle.
This one was taken in the Yukon territory, she said.
Oh, well, there you go. Well,
yeah,
it has Alaska look.
Yeah, it's very the mountains are beautiful and interesting, and the only thing that gets me on this is the foreground. That there's a little too much of the sort of muddy dirt foreground, but especially the sky like that too. It's really well done.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to talk about for a second. We had a scene earlier of the river and the forest kind of midday on a blue sky, severe clear day. And I said, it's really tough to work in the middle of the day with no clouds at all. It's severe clear. And it's, aside from the edge of the day, well, this is that edge of the day. This is the moment on that blue sky day where you got a half an hour after sunrise where the light is still just beautiful and soft, coming through so much atmosphere. The shadows are even, and you've got that glorious kind of robin's egg blue, especially up in Alaska where the sky is so clean. It's beautiful. Beautiful. And Tobe, this is a fun one. The moment with the bee and the flower is great. The shallow depth of field's really nice. The color's nice.
Yeah,
good work.
Just a pretty shot.
And it's nice to see you submitting. I spent some good time with her in Mount Rainier with a fun crew, and we had a great time. So good to see you out shooting. And this is Tony. This is such a nice composition of the robin. It just feels, I don't know if it's made, it feels definitely over sharpened to me. The edge is just a little razor in there. So I back off the sharpening, back off the contrast a little bit. And it might need just a little bit more space in the crop. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I would give a little more space in the crop. But what kind of helps make this image is the fact that the head of the bird is so well set against the background. There are no little pieces of branches behind their head or any of that sort of stuff. My first look at it, I felt like it's definitely over sharpened.
Yeah, it's just over sharpened is the only real problem. I mean, the bird is plenty sharp. It doesn't need to be over sharpened. So just back off that sharpening. Those edges just look severe. Really nice gourds owl.
Yep.
The one thing I'd say is this one thing. When you're doing the still life, you can get rid of that. Beautiful though. Nice fall image.
Yeah.
And
I'd like a little more.
You'd like a little more?
I'd like a little more. I'd like, that stalk coming up out of the one on the right. I kind of feel like I want more of that.
The pumpkin stalk.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to commend Al because Al's been on multiple workshops with me. He was in the Pano group. And every time I get something submitted from Al, he's trying something new and different.
Yeah.
And I just really commend you for that. You're always experimenting with different styles and different types of photography. And you went out and did a still life for the fall submission. So bravo. Dave, you said this is your first real work with the Sunstar. Nice job, man. You got the fall, like grapes are one of the things we look forward to in the fall. You probably have a little bit of diffraction going on as you stop all the way down. You lose a little sharpness in going for your Sunstars always. The one thing I'd say is when you're doing that Sunstar, I know you're working with the mirrorless camera. It's a gift doing Sunstars with mirrorless cameras compared to what it was with DSLRs as you're looking through the glass, because with DSLRs I would activate live view and then you've got this horribly backlit little LCD that you're looking at as you try to compose your star and not burn your eyes. The camera's between you and the sun. With mirrorless, you aren't going to damage your eye looking at the projection on the sensor being played on a little TV screen. So you can just close your eye that's outside the camera, look into the camera, and hold the depth of field preview lever while you're stopped down and just move and shoot it just tiny, bigger. You move your body a little bit handheld and try different amounts of that sun. You're going to find that the tiniest little point in this image is probably going to yield just this little almost perfect star that doesn't have the kind of this is flare. You've got a little ghost in here and flare, but you'll be able to refine that just by moving around and watching it to where there's no sun at all, and there's just a tiny little piece, and just hold down the shutter with it on high speed. And just pop, and just move a little bit to create, and then see where that works. And you'll find yourself nailing them every time. The more you practice that, you'll get to just the right Sunstar that you're after.
Yeah.
Hakan, this is a really lovely scene. I think that, if you're, I think you're exposing more for the shadows here, and you've lost the highlights. There's no detail here in the clouds. And, if in doubt, always bracket. I set my Z cameras up so that, if I hit that function 2 button on the front and roll the back wheel 1 click to the left, it's automatically shooting 1 shot on the meter, 1 shot, 3 stops underexposed. And that way I know I have a backup frame that has that highlight detail preserved in it. If I need to do an HDR, or anybody else, just set your bracketing so that you're shooting one that's underexposed along with the one that's exposed. And if you're hand holding, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, Hakan said he shot this with his mobile phone, which makes it a bit difficult to do bracketing.
Never mind, Hakan.
But right. One thing that I would say is, if you're shooting with a mobile phone, shoot with a camera shoot with an app that shoots raw, and make sure that you're manually exposing.
Did he say was it a panorama in the phone, or was it just cropped from a standard phone shot?
It's a panorama taken with this mobile phone, stitched together and on one.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, just make sure you shoot in RAW. And you can, if you use that Lightroom camera, you can force it to use manual settings and set up the manual setting with that brightest part in the scene, and then shoot all of them. Even if it gets a little underexposed, you can pull those shadows in on one or Lightroom or whatever you're working with. It's great to shoot panoramas with your mobile phone, but you just have to meter them exactly the same way you would with the big camera. Meter on that brightest one and make sure you're not going to blow your highlights, and shoot everything the same way. And if you don't have a camera that'll let you do manual settings and RAW, just download Lightroom or Adobe CC and the Lightroom free app, which has a camera that lets you do that, as Rick said. Carlin, really, I love the 2 benches here and the color and the background. I might pull the contrast back just a little bit. But the one thing I would say, I would crop this little edge here, right, just to the left of that fence post. I think that would improve it. It's a nice scene.
Lovely shot, Linda.
Lovely shot. Cat, this is a nice job of framing. You know, again, it's the same thing we were talking about in that earlier photo of the river and the trees in the middle of the day on a clear day. It's so hard because the shadows are so harsh in the forest and the highlights are so bright on a stream or leaves and vegetation if you've got direct sunlight. I mean, I think forests and streams, I always think overcast and just kind of keep the sky out. I think your natural work to do some framing here is really good. But the other thing I'd say is, you know, finding a vantage point where the stream is a little bit more dominant in the scene. It's a stream or a pond. It's a little bit small in here for being the main subject that's being framed up. And
this is...
Go ahead, Rick.
So Kat says this is on a walking trail near our house. So this is another place where she can go out and sort of play around with stuff. One of the things that I see a lot in these within a frame images is they think the frame is almost the subject to them. And the thing that you have to think about is you want to frame the subject, not make the subject your frame. And I kind of feel like that little bit of orange tree in the background was the idea, the germ of an idea for the subject. And I just, you know, play around with where you are, what you're trying, what you see in that scene that is so impressive to you, and get the shot. And then you can think about, how do I frame that with branches and trees and whatever else?
Indeed. Good words of wisdom. I think, you know, to distill that a little bit more, it's, you know, if you're framing something, make sure that something is dominant and obvious. That this is what you're framing. This is my subject. This one, it reminds me of trips up in the Enchantment Lake Basin in the fall, Matt. I love that high country in the Washington Cascades. When you get into the tamarack larch trees, it's just spectacular in October. Really, really nice job here. You know, I might work to try to get a composition that doesn't have this one tree in the bottom left edge and this bright bit of lit granite on the upper left, but it's beautiful. That's nitpicky. Nice backlit large photo. Gorgeous color. This one, Michael, I really like the view straight up the stream into the fall here. Nice shot, nice composition. I love this line coming down and this one coming down, these two rocks. Yeah, it's a really good job. Nice work.
Standing in the river, looks cold.
Yeah, it does look cold. But I love these scenes where it's like a different perspective, that head on in the water. My tripod's often wet. Arne, this is, you know, just, it feels cold.
Yes.
Very atmospheric image. I like the way that you've got, you know, this tree is a dominant feature. I might want even a little bit more where it doesn't crop that one limb and we get a little bit more of the structure. So it's not kind of leading me out of the frame here.
Yeah, they're beautiful lines in here. Beautiful,
really
beautiful
lines. Yeah.
And I love that little batch of blue up top. I feel like there's a little bit of color balancing that could work. And I wish you could slightly get a little bit more of that gray house on the corner, because it just walks me out of the frame.
Yeah.
I love the lines. I love the roads, and then sort of the three dominant trees. There's a lot to love in this photograph.
Indeed. Bob, this is just fun. Great fall color photo. I love the pink box. Nice job.
Yep.
Yeah, great study in color and texture.
It's like a Banksy.
Charlie. What was that, Woody?
That was like a Banksy landscape.
Yes.
Charlie, Charlie was inspired in our panorama class by some macro panorama ideas that got discussed and bounced around. And so he went out and did a macro panorama, and super cool. Really, really fun.
Yeah.
I don't know, close-up panorama, let's call it that.
Yes.
This is the very definition of a complex panorama, where you need to use your no parallax point and have your lens set just right, because there's a lot close and far away in here, and it's just a really nice job, Charlie.
Yeah.
Very cool. This is Darren. Go Ducks. You know, I'd probably get where I don't have we're talking about this framing. There's no doubt what the subject is here. That one we can't make that comment about, but I feel just particularly this upper bit, I just feel a little distracted by the out of focus greenery. I don't know, but it's cool, Darren.
Hey, Hudson.
The colors are great. Huh?
You know whose house that is Justin and Tara.
Of course it's Justin and Tara. They never overdo anything.
Never decorate.
All right,
Sorry,
I need to go
inside
see those
jokes.
guys. We'll have an aside on that. I'd love to go see those guys. They're so fun. David Archer. Damn you, David Archer. You make me want to go places.
Yeah.
I love the long exposure. It's doing exactly what you need on the water here, but the clouds. What's the exposure on this?
30 seconds.
Yeah. Sweet. God,
Lovely
that's really
shot.
beautiful. Lovely shot.
Did you try any vertical compositions on this, David?
No.
Just went out,
Fair enough.
set it up, took one shot, turned around, walked back in.
That's good enough, bun.
Sort of like Harvey Keitel and Smoke.
Greg, I really like this, Greg. I like the lines of it. Rick talked when we went through these yesterday a bit about rearranging the leaves a little bit, maybe. I thought maybe backing off on the green saturation back here so I just don't get pulled by the color. You know, you could even drop a little graduated filter that just reduces saturation in the greens a little bit, but it's lovely. Yeah. I just love the colors of it.
Yeah, this to me, I would take this shot, but I would probably rearrange those so that they were all inside that piece of blue, and then just shoot straight down, and just sort of. I mean, this is I would be in this place for 45 minutes to an hour.
Well, yeah, and that's not uncommon. I mean, those who've been out on workshops with David and Rick and I. You'll notice we'll obsess about something for an hour and people are like, well, we're ready to go now. And we're like, wait, we're just figuring this scene out. Come on, let's try this, let's try that. Or I'll be working with someone doing that. I mean, sometimes it just takes a lot of time, but I like where you're going with this.
Yep.
Matthew? I'm sorry, I'm probably slaughtering the name, but this is really, it's an interesting kind of abstract with the leaves and the fall color here. I like where you're going. I feel pulled out a little bit by this one in the bottom left corner somehow. But
yeah, this is another one where I'd probably work it a little bit more. I love the shoot coming out on the right side. I'd love to play around and maybe get a little bit lower and see if I could push that up into the open space, sort of a little bit above it. The background is just
super
gorgeous,
cool.
And
really cool.
You know, it's a really inventive and fun shot, and I hope that you were playing around and you have lots of other sort of compositions and test with it, because this one made me want to go out and find some old stuff to shoot. So
take my 105 1.4 and
yeah.
This is another one, Pascal, where I wondered, I can't remember how many seconds this was, maybe like 2 seconds or something like that. And I'd love to see it even longer with these just turning into threads. It's like the difference between car lights on a highway at 2 or 3 seconds where there's little beams versus 30 seconds or 2 minutes where it's just a steady swirl of lines. And I think this would be really interesting to see how this swirls.
Yeah, this one was shot at 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, I'd love to see this at like 2 minutes with some neutral density, because the composition's great. The color's great. It's one of these overcast days in the forest where it's like nature providing a giant softbox and the light's just perfect. I might back the green saturation off a little bit. That's my thing. I'm into less saturation more often.
And less green. You're into less green too.
Yeah. But beautiful. This one's super cool, Raleigh. Bravo on the Milky Way. This is a shot sort of using the MPS rules, a slower shutter or a shorter shutter speed, like 10 seconds if I recall, and 10 frames using Sequitur for stacking on the PC, in a really cool foreground. Beautiful.
So this was shot, he said, taken in the snowy mountains of Wyoming, west of Laramie. The horizon glow on the left is the beginning of the Cameron Mountain Fire in Colorado. It's a beautiful shot. It's absolutely gorgeous shot. Nice work.
Really nice work. This one's fun too. We got another night image right behind it, Steve. And this is the moon rise, creating this moon shadow across the landscape. I love the arc of the river. I'd love to have a little bit more in the foreground. I'd love to see that whole edge of the bank. So maybe a wider angle shot, which would let you do this in maybe less frames. And then funnily enough, I mean, these are the things you find with night shooting, maybe the moon a little higher so that shadow isn't quite so harsh across that bank. But really interesting, the moonlight on the landscape. I love it. And it's fall color down there. Really cool. Nice job.
Steve said that was a new technique for him. And
cool.
I'd keep working it.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't stop. Good stuff. William, I love this one. I think
this is one of my favorites too. You know, he did a 160-degree pano, and in the end decided that he really only needed about 80 degrees. And it's like, it's such a wonderful composition. The processing is beautiful. It's got the beginnings of like a Wyeth landscape, you know. I mean, it's just it's just beautifully done.
Crop even just a touch more, but it's lovely. And you know, you wouldn't. Well,
I would not.
It's beautiful.
I wish I had a little bit more at the bottom of the frame. That's about the only thing that I wish. It just was like another, I don't know, enough to see. I think he said that this was his wife. Enough to see her feet.
Yeah.
Because she is kind of like cut off at the ankles. But
really nice
it's
work.
Beautiful. Great processing too.
This one, Dale, you know, it's once again those kinds of those little bit harsher light. I don't know, it's more directional. And I think I would back off the contrast and the saturation a little bit here. It's an interesting scene. I'd try to compose it in a way where you don't have that bit of overcast sky too. So that's my biggest comments on this one. I think the falls are nice and it's got some color, but I would just back off the contrast and the saturation a touch here.
Yeah.
This one, Gary submitted to us in our Pano project. And Gary is just, he had really not done panos before the project and really worked through this project over the last week. And this is quite an accomplishment. It's a really, really nice pano of the bridge.
Yeah. And I love the gradients of the sky.
Yeah.
It is just
great
beautiful.
Time to be out. It was beautiful. Loved this one. This is Ron, the deer. I love the composition of this. I just, you know, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but backing off sort of the contrast. If you're using one dynamic contrast, if you're using Lightroom, maybe it's the structure, or what do they call that new texture? And
Texture.
Saturation. Yeah, saturation a bit, just backing down on the saturation and the greens and the reds a bit. I like the yellow and the gold is wonderful, but
I would
I
also
love
do a little bit of local adjustment to sort of accentuate the deer and
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yeah.
very light,
Yep.
just something to give a
Dodging
little
bird.
bit more prominence.
Yep. Another nice, great photo by Rich here. I think, and this is one where I'm going to say the opposite of what I always say. I would go in and boost the contrast a little bit just by pulling the black shadows down a little bit, and pull the highlights back some to create some more contrast in the highlights, and then maybe boost the saturation just a little bit, not too much, and maybe put a vignette in where it draws our eye into this bunch of grapes a little bit.
Yeah.
Elaine, I'm not sure what's going
Alan.
on in the light in this one. Or Alan, sorry, Alan. I've got to throw my reading glasses on when I'm looking at these. I thought that was an eye.
So this one,
My
this one was
apologies.
shot at Havasu County Park in Kingman, Arizona.
I love the light in the foreground, but this flare that's going on where it just washes the upper rocks out is unusual.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I love the bottom. I just love. I want more of that. You know.
Yeah, exactly. I love the light down in here.
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure what went on with the flare up above, and it's a great kind of severe clear sky, and it looks like that kind of edge of day image. I like the diagonal. The composition's great.
Yeah.
Arlene, I remember you coming to a workshop with me and submitting this as one of your 5 favorite images for the start when we all look at everyone's images to start things off. And I remember loving it then. It's got such nice shadows and lines and that view of fall out the window. There's the frame within the frame. Really, really nice. Really nice, Arlene. We had fun with Arlene in the Pano project as well. Mm-hmm. And Dave, another Pano project participant, workshop participant. I love, this is a really cool view down into the valley. And the waterfall, we're kind of up above. I feel like maybe I don't need the waterfall. I don't know. But if I do, I think a little more aperture and getting these rocks in the foreground a little sharper.
Yep.
Yeah. This is a cool one, Pat. The cotton. And Woody said that he went back and forth a little with Pat about submitting this and about there not being much interesting to shoot out where you live. But I think this is fascinating. Beautiful, beautiful colors and textures. And, this is another one of those scenes where I'm going to stay and just work and work and work.
Yeah. They said this is a cotton harvest. This is one of those, the contrast of the blue and the sky with the white and the browns in the foreground is beautiful, really nice. And I agree. This is a place where I just be working. I'd come back with 200, 300 images and really sort of walk through them to try and figure out which ones gave me the best composition. But nice job, cool. Pat. Yeah.
I feel like this is an example of, we were talking a few weeks ago about, hey, there's nothing interesting near me. I live in wherever.
Yes.
To me, I've never seen this before. I've never seen cotton shot like that. I've never seen it close up. I've never seen West Texas. I've never been there. To me, it's super interesting. Yep.
All right. I think this is the last one. This is my little baby girl Pepper, who on her third Halloween here. It was a polar bear, but it got cold, so we had to put her little Patagonia bear jacket on over the costume. And this is my buddy Andy's yard. It was just gorgeous light flowing through there, and I did not have a camera, but I had my brand new Pixel 5, which I gotten that morning, and I was pretty darned impressed with what a nice job it did in its portrait mode, artificially blurring that background. I just would say that if you don't have a camera with you, your phone takes amazing photos. So I thought I'd just throw up my fall photo there, and I'll stop my screen share. We pretty much have blown through the hour looking at everybody's awesome submissions here, and that's a fun way to do it. But I mean, if you guys are game, we can stick around and take a few questions. What else has anybody got to do today?
I know nothing's going on.
I'm looking through the questions we had. So here, a question from Terry. She said she typically shoots her panos with Nikon zoom lenses. But do you think that shooting with prime gets better and more noticeable results?
You know, I honestly think that a pano is a way to kind of equalize an inferior setup sometimes. You know, if you have a lower megapixel camera or a lens that's maybe not as fantastic wide, you can do things with a panorama that enable you to get so much more quality just by scanning that sensor over and that projection from that lens over and increasing its resolution. I mean, I love working on panos with my prime lenses, but with a good zoom lens, you get just as good of results, I think. What do you think, Rick?
I would agree with that. I would.
Yeah.
It all, you know, one of the things that we talk about in workshops all the time is it's as important for you to know your lens as it is your camera. And
Indeed.
if you live with your lenses the way you live with your camera, over time you understand what are the strengths and weaknesses of that lens, right? And if it's got nothing but weaknesses, you get rid of it and you get a different one.
Yeah.
You know, I've shot great panos handheld with my phone. You know, the optics today are just so much better than they were 20 to 30 years ago. So
10 years ago, even.
10 years ago, yes.
Agreed.
Let's see.
I think to a certain point that breaks down a little bit sometimes in the really long end of the spectrum, though. You know?
Yes, but that comes down to a thing of knowing your lens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Bill Marhofer asked he'd like some guidance, maybe even a presentation one day on shooting backlit images into the sun without capturing only silhouettes.
Well, there you go with the bracketing that we talked about a little bit earlier. I mean, yeah, if you're careful with whether you completely hide the sun if it's in the scene behind something, or maybe just have it peek out of the edge at a small aperture to get a sun star, and then bracket so that you capture those shadows and the highlights. Bracketing is your key. We can talk about that. I think that's an interesting topic. Sun stars in general. And just high dynamic range or high contrast scenes in general. They're always the toughest, but they're also really emotionally impactful. Backlit scenes just have an emotional punch that few others do, like those larch trees being lit from behind in that mountain scene.
Right.
It's just great.
There's a place for fill flash in that too sometimes.
That's true. If you're shooting particularly more close-up subjects, absolutely. Adding some fill flash can help a lot for sure. You know, I know there was a question I saw while you're looking for the next one. Somebody asked if now that the Z6 II and Z7 II are coming out, I'll just quickly say, yes, of course, I'll do a setup video once I get mine and set it up.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my last comment, was that we're all, well, not those of us in the Sony world, but those of you in the Nikon world are all waiting to hear what Hudson has to say about the two. So,
well, there was somebody who asked whether it was going to be better. I don't know if it and the truth is low light. Yeah, and the truth is that the sensors are not changing one bit. They're getting dual processors, a much bigger buffer, a second card slot, and a more advanced autofocus system with the processing power to run all of that together. So I'll let you know what I think, but it shouldn't have better image quality. It should be the same image quality, which is pretty stupendous. So I'm never been complaining about that. So, and yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. I know there's people in here that are not Nikon shooters, so I don't want to monopolize all that, but I do have a bunch of fun goodies coming. I'm expecting the 14 to 24 on both of those new bodies soon. So stay tuned.
Well, I and the four Sony shooters will go off and we'll have a little Zoom chat of our own.
And Sony makes awesome, and here's the truth is that, for all these cutting videos of people bashing brands and, one's better than another, it's the same, whatever tech you're watching right now, there's plenty of people trying to bash whatever news out because they are invested in the opposite. And the truth is that all of it is so good now. We're just blessed. I mean, whether you're shooting Fuji or you're shooting, Olympus or Sony or Nikon or Canon, they're all making awesome stuff, and we're all really benefiting from the competition between them all. Same thing with Google and Apple and Samsung and LG. I mean, everybody's the stuff is so good. It's hard to make bad exposures, and the optics are getting better for everybody too. It's just exciting times. It's fun stuff. So
it's
like
funny, the big change in the camera market has been the disappearance of what we used to call the point and shoot, which were the cameras that had the most compromises. Those were the ones that had the crappy lens,
tiny sensor.
I mean, it's hard to buy a bad camera today. It really is. You have to go out of your way to buy a bad camera. So
true story.
All right. Well, I think that's all the questions for today. The next one in 2 weeks, we'll do more of just a full-on Q&A with even a lightning round at the end. So
that sounds kind of fun.
We'll have that.
Like,
we'll have
sort of
that
like
sign
speed
up.
chess.
We'll have that sign up open real soon.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody. I hope everybody has a great day. Probably not everybody's going to be happy at the end of today or several days from now, but I hope that most people are happy. And thanks, everybody. Stay safe, have fun, keep shooting. And, we just showed there's always something to shoot around you. So, so keep practicing, and we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Thanks everybody. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Darren. Thanks, Woody.
Yep.